This is J. Krishnamurti's fourth public talk in Saanen, 1961.
We were saying last time we met that seriousness is that urge, the intention to go to the very end of things, to discover the essence. And if there is not that urge, that compulsive energy that drives one to discover what is true, I'm afraid these discussions, these talks here, will have very little significance. And I would like this morning, and it's a pity to talk on a lovely morning like this, to go into the question of humility and learning. Of course, humility is not that pretentious vanity which cloaks under the name of humility. Being vain, one pretends to be humble. Humility is not virtue, because anything that is cultivated, dragged out, disciplined, controlled, does not bring about humility. It's not a thing to be sown and reaped. It must come into being. And humility is not the subjugation of desire. Desire which seeks fulfillment in success. It is something entirely different. And I feel without humility, one can't go very far. I do not mean religious humility, the humility of the monks, the saints, and the priests. The humility which cultivated austerity brings into being. It is something entirely different. And to go to the very end of it and to actually experience it, to live with it, so that every corner of one's mind, all the dark, secret, hidden places of one's own heart and mind are exposed to this humility. So that one is soaked in it. And if we can go to the very end, which is the essence of humility, I think we have to consider what is learning. Do we ever learn? And is all learning not mechanical? the additive process. Which forms a center. And that center experiences. And the experience becomes memory. The experience is memory, which colors all further experiences, further information, further intimation, and hints. Is learning further accumulation as knowledge? And if there is the accumulative process, as experience, as knowledge, as a being and becoming, is there then humility? Because if the mind is crammed full, filled with knowledge, with experience, with memory, it cannot possibly receive the new. And is not the total emptying of the mind necessary for that which is timeless to come into being? And does that not mean total, complete sense of a mind that has humility, that is not becoming, that does not accumulate, that is no longer seeking or learning? I wonder if one has learnt anything, one has gathered, one has had many, many experiences, incidents, which have left their marks, which we have stored up as remembrances. Those are all mechanical processes. I learn a language. A new way of exploring the heavens and so on. Those are all accumulative mechanical processes, and which we call learning. And this mechanical process of learning leaves a center, the center which accumulates as knowledge, which resists, which experiences, which desires to be free. Which asserts, which denies, which accepts, discards, which is always in battle, in conflict. It is this center that is accumulating and emptying itself. The positive movement of acquiring and the negative movement of denying. This process is what we call learning. I'm sure some of you, if you will excuse my saying so, are trying to learn something from the speaker. But you're not going to learn anything from me, because you can only learn something which is mechanical. We're not dealing with ideas. We're not dealing with descriptions of something else. We're concerned with the fact, with what is. And to understand what is not a process, a mechanical process, a process which by looking you gather, you add to yourself, either to diminish the center or to enlarge the center. And this center, accumulated through centuries, conditioned by society, by religions, by experiences, by education, from this center we always try to change our qualities, our way of thinking, implant a new set of ideas, discarding the old. So, this center is always trying to reform itself, to destroy itself, in order to get more. And that's what we are doing all the time. From the center we try to change. Please do listen to what the speaker is talking about. This center is what we call the ego, the self, or whatever name you like to give to it. The name is irrelevant. But the fact is, what is important. And in this process of change, there is violence. All change implies violence. And through the violence, there is nothing new. When one says, I must control myself, subjugate myself, conform myself to a pattern, all that implies violence. The saints, the leaders, the teachers, the prophets, they all talk about changing, controlling, implying violence. Obviously, to conform means violence. To discipline oneself, the center disciplining itself to a pattern implies violence. And then we talk about the ideals of non-violence. So change implies, does it not, a violence within the field of time. I am this and I am going to be that. I am going to force myself to be that. That is in the distance, the ideal, the example, the norm. And in this process is violence. And in this process there is peace and violence, the opposites, and the conflict of the opposites. And we say that I must learn. All about myself, all about this thing. And for us, learning is accumulative, which only strengthens the center. So if one sees that, if one realizes that, experiences that, not merely verbally, intellectually, but actually experience this fact, that where there is the center which demands change, and in that realizes in that change there is violence, there can never be peace. So, for me, there is no learning. There is only seeing. Seeing is not accumulative. Seeing a fact is not, there is no process of gathering in or denying. Seeing what is. And seeing what is destructive. And in destruction there is peace, not violence. Violence, revolution, change exists in the process of accumulation of which the center is always trying to gather. But when one sees that, totally, completely, with one's whole being, then the fact, the thing that is, what is completely destructive. And what is destruction is creation. So humility is that state of mind which has discarded completely all the accumulative processes and its opposites, and is from moment to moment aware of what is. Therefore it has no opinion, no judgment. Therefore, such a mind knows what is freedom. A mind in violence has no freedom. A mind that is seeking freedom can never be free, because to it, Freedom is further accumulation. And to arrive at that freedom implies more violence, or forcing the mind to be quiet, to deny, to control itself, to twist all the desires in order to be free. Humility implies total destruction, not of outward social things, but complete destruction of the center of oneself, of one's own traditions, ideas, experiences, knowledge, completely emptying the mind of everything that it has known. Therefore, such a mind is no longer thinking in terms of change. It's really a marvelous thing if one can feel that. You see, that's part of meditation. That's not what we want to discuss this morning. We'll do it another time. What is meditation? But without understanding what is change, because that's what we want, most of us, to change. And the world is changing very rapidly, changing in outward things, going to the moon and all the rest of rockets and all that, changing of values. Coca-Cola is spreading throughout the world. Radios. The ancient civilizations are toppling over. And that's what we call change. The rapidity of change is greater than the fact of change. All the ancient gods, all the traditions, the saviors, the masters, they're all gone. And few people hold on to them, building a defense around themselves. And so, the mind that is defending itself, the mind that is changing, is always seeking further shelter, further refuge. It's not concerned with destruction. It's not concerned with creation. So if you go very deeply and seriously into the question of humility, you're bound to question this whole problem of learning. The learning of words, which prevents the seeing of things as they are. And so, a mind that is no longer concerned with change, has no fear. And a mind that has no fear is free. And it seems to me such a mind is absolutely essential. Not the intellectual mind that has its own place, not the argumentative, clever, cunning mind, but a mind that has understood the thing that we are talking about. Such a mind not seeking, not trying to change itself into another state or into another pattern, no longer exposing itself to further experiences and demanding, asking. Such a mind is free. And it is only such a mind that can be quiet, still, and perhaps then that which is nameless can come into being. But humility is essential, not the cultivated kind, which is artificial. Not vanity posing as humility. Not the mind that is crippled with infinite knowledge and experiences, seeking humility. You know, one must be without capacity. Without gift. Be as nothing inwardly. And I think if one sees this, not learns about how to be nothing, which is too stupid and silly, but one actually sees this, and the seeing is the experiencing of it. And then perchance the other thing can come into being. Can we further talk about this? This thing only, not how we're going to change the world or what Khrushchev is going to do and all the rest of it, but about this. I'll send some. Yeah. The gentleman asks, is understanding a capacity? Is it a capacity to be cultivated, to be slowly nurtured? Capacity implies a gradual process in time. Do I understand something through time, through many days? Or do I see something immediately? Do I understand something immediately? And what do we mean by understanding and seeing? Now, do I understand and see that being a nationalist, identifying oneself with a particular group, sect, with a particular belief, do I see and understand that it is very destructive? Not in this word I've used previously, that it is stupid, better than the word destructive. Do I really understand it? And do I see completely, totally the whole significance of belonging, committing oneself to something? Do I see it? You know, we all want to belong to something. Belong to a particular group, belong to a society, to a race, to a name. We want to commit ourselves to a particular action, communist, socialist, or what you like, or a religious action, a moral action. Why? There are several things involved with it, aren't there? To do, to act cooperatively, together. And also, I commit myself to a particular party, because that gives me strength to do, to be. That's all right at a certain level. But to be committed to something surely prevents one from understanding and pursuing enlightenment. Now, if I understand this whole process, if I see that, the seeing, the understanding of this whole thing, does it take time? It takes time because I'm lazy. I have committed myself, and I'm afraid if I uncommit myself, I'll create more trouble. So I say, well, I'll postpone it. I'll think about it tomorrow. Surely, it's a lazy mind that prevents itself from seeing directly something actually. And surely that does not demand time. I mean, to see oneself being stupid, surely it does not require time. I see myself stupid. Nobody has to tell me. But I want to do something about it. I want to change it. I want to become clever. I want to be more this and less that. All that implies time, and therefore violence. But to see that I am stupid, to see it, to be completely in it, not only demands understanding, but the seeing itself destroys everything that I've built in myself and around myself. That is what I'm afraid of. But to see that I am stupid, narrow, petty-minded, bourgeois, mediocre, and to live with that, not try to change it, not try to polish it and give it a new name, new title, and all the rest of the nonsense, but to live with it. And watch all its movements, its pettiness, its pretenses. To know all the cunning ways of stupidity, trying to become very clever. That doesn't require time, that doesn't require capacity. It requires that seriousness which will go through to the very end of it. Good Lord says, we do act immediately, feel immediately, say things immediately when there is danger. All our instincts, our senses are fully awake when there is danger. You don't talk about time. You don't say, is it a thing to be gathered slowly, all the rest of it, which a lazy mind invents.
Yes, you said about desire, that in such a free mind also there is no desire. And in these days there was, for me, it came to me also how it was.
Madam, just not too long a question, please. It's very difficult if you...
Yes.
Yes, please. Short question because I have to repeat it. Others can't hear it.
Now, then you saw the stupidness of desire and the freedom, and afterwards it came in again.
Now, just a minute, please. The lady says...
The same stupidness.
I have said that a free mind has no desire. I've never said that. What's wrong with the desire? The wrongness comes in when it creates conflict. When I want that car, which I can't have, but to look at it, to see the beauty of the line, the color, the speed. What's wrong with it? Is that desire to look? But desire becomes important, urgent, and compulsive and I want to possess that thing. After all, to be a slave to anything, slave to tobacco, to drink, to a particular way of thinking, and the urge to break away from that pattern. All that implies desire. And so we say, oh, we must come to a state when there is no desire. See, that's why we shape life by our pettiness, by our desires, by our longings, by our fears. And so our life becomes mediocre, empty, such a stupid affair, full of unknown fears, dark corners. But if one understand all this, as we have been talking about, seeing it, actually seeing it, then I think desire is quite a different meaning. Then it is not important at all. Let you ask to see what is it only applied for oneself, or the total content of what is? Is that the question? Yes. Can you divide seeing into what is applicable to oneself? Seeing is this total thing, isn't it? Not partial. There is no seeing if it is partial. You know, I don't know. When you see this marvelous thing on a lovely day like this, do you see the totality of the whole thing? Or are you caught by the word, the mountain, the hill, the pine tree, and the river, and therefore limit your seeing? Am I?
Is it possible to distinguish between being identified with what you see and, on the other hand, to live in what you see?
So, why do we want to be identified with anything?
In order to become bigger.
Okay, you see? In order to become something bigger, something nobler, more worthwhile, that means giving significance to life. And we give significance to life because life has no significance to us. So we give, attribute significance to it. So why should one identify with the family, with a friend, with an idea, with a country? Why? Why not brush all identification away and live with the thing what is all the time, which is always changing? which is never still.
Well, I meant that when not identified, the center in ego disappears, so you live out there.
Yes. So we must be a little careful here not to get excited over ideas, symbols. We don't live out there. The fact is we live here, in our narrow circle, with our petty jealousies, vanities, stupidities. That's our life. We have to face that and not identify with the gods, with the mountains, with, all that stuff. It's much more arduous, which demands greater intensity to live with the thing what is without trying to shatter it, with trying to change it, than to live with Jesus. That's an escape. And the mind escapes and obviously has no significance at all. It has significance in the thing to which it escapes.
Don't you think in discovering there is joy and pleasure, and is not discovering learning?
I wonder what we mean by discovering.
Just to look at our world and see how it goes and everything.
Yes, sir? Do we discover our sorrow and live with it joy and delight? Huh? That's just it. I can discover the beauties of the earth and discover the stupidities of the politicians, either revel in it or delight, spit at it, but to discover the whole significance of sorrow is quite a different thing, isn't it? Which means I have to discover the sorrow of myself and sorrow of the world. And do we discover do we find anything new in sorrow by living with it? Which means you are learning, aren't you? You are learning, studying the book of sorrow. Which means you will learn what to do and what not to do. You will learn to safeguard, to protect, or resist. I wonder if you learn about sorrow. Do please, let's talk about it. I'm not an authority. I don't think you can learn, which will become mechanical. But a mind that sees the danger of mechanical gathering ceases to learn, and therefore then it observes, it sees, it perceives, which is entirely different from learning. To See what is sorrow. Just to see it, to live with it. Not to accept it, not to justify it, not to find a substitute for it, but to live with it, to go into it. Let it, it's a movement, it's a living thing, and to live with it. As I was saying, that requires, as with joy and sorrow, it requires a great deal of energy, a great deal of insight to go to the very end of sorrow or of joy. Comment, madame?
She says she must know the materials of which is made the mind.
Ah. The question is, you must know the materials of which the mind is made of. No? You must know what the mind is made of. What is the mind made up of? The brain, the responses, the senses, the mind which divides, which holds, which denies, the thing that suffers, the thing that longs, the thing that aspires. Jealousy, envy, cleverness, knowledge, fear, the total thing which we call consciousness. All that is the mind. We mustn't go for the moment whether the brain is the mind. We leave that for the moment. When we talk about the mind, surely we mean all that. The capacity, judgment, evaluation, doubt, superstition, fears, safeguards, the search for security, the seeking for permanency, the do's and don'ts, this whole thing, this consciousness, which is both the inherited racial upon which is implanted the present, the education, the experiences. Surely all that is the mind. The center that is seeing, evolving, changing, struggling, suffering. Surely all that is the mind. I know what the substance, we know what the substance of the mind is. The thinker and the thought. The thinker always trying to control thought, change thought, follow. And is it possible for the mind to empty itself of all this? You can't say yes or no. It would be stupid on our part to say yes, it is possible, or say no, it is not possible. All that one can do is to find out whether it is possible or not to see the frontiers of consciousness and their limitations and where it is necessary to have a frontier, and whether it's possible to go beyond all that. And as I was saying, that is a serious mind that knows its own limitation, that's aware of its own mediocrity, stupidity, angers, jealousies, ambitions. And having understood them, is it possible for it to go beyond? Or, having understood them, to remain quiet, not seeking, not wanting, not groping after? Then it's only such a mind that has brought about order within itself, and is quiet. It's only such a mind that can perhaps receive something which is not made up of the mind itself. Parlez en français, madame. Ah no, the lady asked, do we create eternal values? Can the mind, which is the result of time, of many days, centuries, many experience within the field of time and space, can it create eternal values? Or it can cease to be that which it is, and perhaps something else can come. So, you see, we're always wanting to eternal values. When I don't even understand the values which I have imposed upon myself, which society has imposed upon myself. You know, thought is of time. And thought creates values. Thought is seeking something which is not of time. Obviously, that is so, it can't do it. Yes, sir.
What is value? It is such a dear word to us for all the time and centuries. But what is it? Why should it be so important? Is it not merely a system of observational wisdom? That is to say, becoming and doing, and not less in the state of unfolding.
Quite right, sir. So you've answered your own question, sir.
Vous dites qu'il faut se connaître et pour voir ce qui est, il faut un certain effort pour maintenir.
The lady says to know oneself requires certain effort. I wonder. God says, we all make such effort to do, to be, to acquire, don't we? We're always making effort. Does seeing require effort? I'm interested in looking at that mountain, the green slope, to look at it, just to look at it. Does that require effort? It requires effort when I'm not interested and when I'm told I must look. By looking at it, I will arrive at eternal values. Then I force myself to look at it, which is also silly. If I'm not interested in looking, why bother about it?
You said yourself that the total distraction of our holy eye demands a huge energy. Wherefrom take it?
I said to live with what is requires energy. How do you get that energy? That's the question. How do you get it? How do you get it? Wait, one moment. See, you're not, please do inquire into it. How do you get energy? You know, you get energy when you have no conflict. When there is no contradiction in your mind, in your consciousness. No contradiction. No struggle, no violence. When you're not being torn by innumerable desires in opposite directions. We dissipate that energy by worshipping success, by wanting to be something famous, wanting to fulfill, the innumerable things we do which are in a state of contradiction, which produce contradiction. We dissipate our energy in that. Going to the psychiatrist, going to churches, going to innumerable things that we do. Escaping. And if there is no contradiction, if there is no urge to fulfill, when there is no fear of the gods, of the ultimate eternal values, or of your neighbor, or of what another says, then you have energy. Not in meager quantity, but abundantly. And you must have that energy, that passion to pursue to the very end. Every thought, every feeling, every intimation. I'm afraid that's 12 o'clock.